What's up, everybody? Welcome to Cherry Pickers, Episode 6. Gary Altizer here with Jim Bailey. Today, we're going to discuss all things NFL Week 18, the playoff implications, our best bets, teaser picks, and we're also going to discuss the NCAA Football National Championship that happens tomorrow. We got a lot on our plate today, Bailey. Why don't we just start off with our record, how we've done here. 5 weeks in, we give our system picks every week, which are single bets, single game bets, and then you give a best bet and a teaser pick. How have the Cherry Pickers done in 5 weeks?
Yeah, kind of grading everything separately. We got just the system plays, which are just straight computer picks off our algorithm we have that we punch in, just spits out numbers. The system picks on those, we are 13 and 11 on published plays so far that we've given out on YSN. So hope to be a little better, but over 500, so we'll take it. It's been a crazy year really for NFL betting. Best bets were 3 and 2, and then our teasers of the week also 3 and 2. So profitable, we'll take it.
Yeah, hey, so if you keep those percentages over a long period of time, you're making money, and that's what we're trying to do. There are a lot of shows that you watch on YouTube or other places where they won't talk about those things. They'll never give you their record, and if they do, they'll erase the old video or they'll cut out their losses so they could try to make them, their records look better. We're going to try to be as transparent as possible here. So good to see that all three things are winning right now. So why don't we start with, before we get to the NFL, let's start with the national championship game tomorrow. You're a big college fan. In this neck of the woods, there are a lot of people watching, and for two reasons. Either you're the part of the small percentage of Ohio area folks here in the Valley that like the Wolverines, or you're the large percentage that root against them. What do you see from the Wolverines in this matchup tomorrow in this championship game? I think that we see some value in one side of the line, and you got some reasons why.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Michigan. I mean, they went toe-to-toe with Alabama, and I thought they were the better side. I mean, they looked like the better team, more consistent success. Their defensive front just got after Milroe all day. He was under pressure dang near every drop back. Offensively, they kind of do what they do. They grind out running plays. They usually aren't real explosive, but down to down, they just consistently can churn out 5-6 yards at a time, constantly getting in third and medium, third and short. McCarthy does what he does. He's really good at just buying time, extending plays, doesn't make many mistakes. Michigan actually made a few mistakes in that game and still were able to overcome it. They had that punt return that was muffed early, missed an extra point. Still found a way to win the game. And I thought, even though it went to overtime, Michigan clearly, to me, looked like the better team over Alabama, which, of course, is saying something. So now they match up with Washington. Really worry about Washington defensively, how they're going to hold up front against that power run game of Michigan. They're more of a finesse team, Pac-12, kind of cliche, but I think it's true. Like their defense, metrically, they look like maybe 50th best in the country. They're nowhere near the level of Michigan's defense, even Alabama's defense. Offensively, they got Penix. He's just a total gunslinger. I mean, their offense is legit. A lot of fun to watch. Their offensive line is good. They actually won the Joe Moore Award, who they give to the best offensive line unit in college football. They gave it to Washington after Michigan won it the last 2 years. So it's going to be fun to watch, but I do think there's some value in Michigan minus 4.5 points. I think it should be a little bit higher. I just don't see Washington being able to stop Michigan's offense. I think Michigan's going to run the ball, set up their play action. It's just going to be hard for them to get many stops. They're going to need turnovers. Their offense is going to have to go off. I do think Washington will be able to score some points. Michigan pass rush is so good. You think they're going to get after Penix. I do think there's some value. If it was me, I would set the line more like Michigan minus 7 or so.
Yeah, that's kind of where I expected it to be. I don't watch a ton of college ball. I did watch the playoff games, and that Michigan team, they just looked like the better team over Alabama. They also missed a field goal in that game. They did not play a clean game, did not play their best game, but they did end up covering. And anybody who does follow gambling and Michigan, Dave Portnoy, the owner and founder of Barstool Sports, won $1 million on that game on Michigan covering. So anybody out there that likes the Wolverines, you have to feel good about your chances right now. I think that team, they just look good all over. They don't have many holes. And like you said, that front seven, I don't know how Washington's going to be able to keep up with that. And if they can't keep their quarterback clean, I don't see how they're going to even really have much of a chance. So it will be interesting to see. It will be the first national championship for Michigan in how long?
Yeah, since '97, which was a shared national championship. So huge game for Michigan's program, of course. Just news report came out today, which always happens. Harbaugh talking about interest from teams in the NFL. It's like a yearly thing. Is he going to go to the NFL? Is he not? They lose a lot next year. I mean, their team is just stacked with upperclassmen and seniors. McCarthy, you would think, is going to go pro, looking like he's probably going to be a first-round pick. So just a massive game for Michigan's program, of course.
Yeah, well, I don't know that we're going to take an official stand, but I know, Jim, you do like Michigan -4.5. I got it at -4 early in the week. I bought a half a point, though. I bought the hook just because I'm chicken. But I felt really good about that bet. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. No Monday night games, obviously, because of that. So we're going to move on to the NFL games. But before we do have to say, if you feel like you have a gambling problem or you need some help, 1-800-GAMBLER is there for you to provide resources. All right, let's get into last night. Let's start off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They needed a win to help their chances. I think their chances went from 14% to 68% with a win. And they was able to do that. They come away with a win at Baltimore in a rainstorm. We were talking, you and I, we both got in on the under. We won some money on that under bet because I know for me, anytime I see rain like that in an NFL game, I swear the unders hit on some crazy clip. And with the way that rain was coming down, you could see the ball wasn't moving. How many fumbles were there in that game? There had to have been, 4 fumbles in that game, where some of them were while the offenses were driving deep, so there was points taken off the board. And when that happens, it's easy to cash in on that under. But the Steelers did what they had to do. The Ravens obviously didn't start a lot of their important guys, but they took care of business. And I know you and a couple of our other buddies were talking. You like what you see from Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, what can you say? I mean, he's playing good. Not setting the world on fire, but he's playing like a competent NFL quarterback. You know, it's an upgrade from what they've had the last couple of years. You got to be impressed with the guy. It's going to be super interesting to see what they do next year. I mean, of course, they got the rest of this year. They possibly could get into the playoffs still. I saw they need either Jacksonville to lose or Buffalo to lose for them to get in. Man, I hope they do. I would love to see them in the playoffs. And you'd think they got to roll with Rudolph in the playoffs. I mean, they're kind of still saying, well, Pickett's still the franchise guy. He's still our guy. But for now, we're going with Rudolph. I mean, you'd have to roll with Rudolph in the playoff. There's no question. Even if they get in and they have to play Baltimore again, they've had tons of success against Baltimore lately. They've won 7 out of 8 against Baltimore overall, including 4 in a row at Baltimore. So you never know. Sneak in the way they're playing right now. You got to be impressed. 3 weeks ago, it looked like they were dead in the water. Yeah. Talking about next season, what are they going to do with Tomlin? And then, boom, they roll off 3 wins in a row with Rudolph, and here we are rooting for playoff chances today.
Yeah, it's crazy. 10 wins with this team. Getting 10 wins is kind of crazy. They just didn't look like they should be winning any games, and they way overachieved early in the season by some things falling their way. They get 2 defensive touchdowns against the Browns in that first game that got them the win. And then against Baltimore dropped 8 passes, I think, including 2 touchdowns, one that turned into a field goal and the other one that they didn't score on. So you're talking about a difference of 11 points there. But they got rid of Canada, who, I mean, at first it was like, was he the problem in this offensive output? Is this coming because he's not there, or would this happen to otherwise because, the teams they were playing and the circumstances? But at this point now, you have to think that him being gone, they have gotten a little bit more loose in their play calling, a little less predictable. And Rudolph, he's not making any mistakes. And as our buddy said yesterday, he looks like a professional quarterback out there.
Yeah, he looks so much more poised and in control in the pocket. That's where I've been critical of Pickett, is his pocket presence and his awareness in the pocket is just not good. It seems like he just a lot of times feels pressure that's not there. I think a lot of it comes from their offensive line pass protection is not the best, and he kind of gets used to getting pressured. and he just bails. The first sign of anything, he just turns and bails out the pocket. It's a stark difference with Rudolph. He hangs in there. He might hang in there to a fault a little bit too much. I mean, he'll hang onto the ball for a while and give his guys a chance. Way better job at scanning the field, coming off his first read, and just looks poised, calm, in control. Or sometimes Pickett just looks like a deer in the headlights in the pocket sometimes. And I mean, you see that with young QBs. Even Rudolph a few years ago, he had his chances when Roethlisberger went down. Didn't look great. I mean, they've won a decent amount of games with him, but that was 4 seasons ago. And you got to think 4 seasons worth of practice and experience. He looks better. He looks more experienced, more calm. You got to be impressed with the guy.
Yeah, when he started for Roethlisberger 4 seasons ago, that Steelers team was absolutely stacked. They probably had the best offensive line in the NFL then. They had weapons. They had a great running back, and he only led them to 8 wins. I thought they really underachieved with him, and I thought the guy was I didn't even know why he was on a roster. So when he came into this situation where the offensive line's not that great, they do have a couple of weapons on offense who hadn't really lived up to things. I just thought this is not going to work out, but he's looked good, and he's just doing enough to win, and he's not screwing things up, and that's what you want a backup to do. We do have a question here from a viewer. If the Steelers make the playoffs, who would you guys start? Pickett, who's supposed to be your QB of the future, or Rudolph? I would say you have to go Rudolph.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Winning 3 in a row with Rudolph. If you want to win, if you want to give yourself the best chance to win the game at this point in time, I don't think there's any question. It's Mason Rudolph. Off season, we'll see. They are saying they're still going to roll with Pickett. He's still the franchise guy. Rudolph's contract is up, so are they going to bring him back for 1 year to back up Pickett or compete with him in camp? It's going to be super interesting to see what they do. I think they are going to be a little bit stubborn and roll with Pickett still. I mean, he still has some upside, but man, he leaves a lot to be desired so far, and he's not young for a quarterback. He was supposed to be more of a pro-ready guy was been at Pitt for all those years. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think they will kind of stick to their guns, say we drafted this guy in the first round, we're going to give him every chance to succeed. And I do expect Pickett to be there week 1 next year, but we'll see. They might bring Rudolph back in even just a backup capacity. I don't know if he would even go for that. With how he's played these last few weeks, he might get some interest around the league as a backup job, or maybe to compete for a starter job. Was news reports were saying this offseason he really wasn't getting any offers, and he was looking into careers after football. He was looking at doing like an internship somewhere.
Wow.
Looking like he was on his last legs. Pittsburgh brought him back, and it's a great story.
Well, good for him. You're also hearing rumors about some veterans. Russell Wilson's obviously going to be a free agent. Ryan Tannehill, both 2 guys who've had some success in the league. Obviously, Wilson was a top 5 guy for several years. And Tannehill, for 1 or 2 of those years, he played at a top 5 level as well. But like you said, you're probably going to see them be stubborn because that's just the Steelers' MO. They take forever to give up on guys. They stay the course, which has obviously worked out for them. But sometimes they can do that too much and be a little bit stubborn. But as of right now, all they need is one other thing to happen, and they're in. So I know all Steelers Nation will be watching today to see what happens in these AFC matchups. There was one other game yesterday. It was the Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. The C.J. Stroud-led Texans were able to come away with a win in a game that we were watching. I'll tell you, the Colts, they made 3 blunders there that cost them that game. They ended up not winning and obviously not covering. They missed a field goal. They used a timeout. They had 3 timeouts left. It was 4th down. They were at the 12-yard line. And you got 3 timeouts left and it's 4th down. You don't want to use a timeout because why? If you don't get the first down, you can call 3 timeouts, get the ball back, maybe have a minute left to drive down and score. Try to draw them off sides. That didn't work. And then on the 4th down play, they have a running back coming out of the backfield with 7 catches all year. Minshew rushed the pass a little bit, but it hit the kid in the hands and he dropped it. I mean, talk about a comedy of errors for that team to not win or cover. But Stroud, what happened the first play of the game? Goes deep. They score a touchdown. D'Amico Ryan's doing a fantastic job there. They probably are a team of the future in the AFC.
Yeah, you got to be super happy if you're a Houston fan with what's transpired this year and how the future is going to look. 10 wins. I mean, nobody would have picked Houston for making 10 wins, making the playoffs. Just a huge accomplishment, no matter what happens in the playoffs. Stroud looks amazing. I mean, we've talked about him a lot on this show. just incredible arm strength. I mean, the guy is physically gifted with his arm. That one play, he was kind of under pressure and just flicked a ball off his back foot, just all wrist, really. And it went 30, 35 yards down the field on the money. I mean, he's certainly just gifted athletically. Yeah, that coaching blunder at the end by Steichen. Yeah, the timeout bothered me really more than the play call. I mean, you have Jonathan Taylor. He had like 180 yards. You'd think you would give him a chance there with the game on the line, but fourth down, 3 timeouts left. Instead of just calling a play, or they try to draw them off sides and then go ahead and go with your play, they just go full bore. We're going to draw them off sides, and if they don't, we're going to call a timeout. And yeah, they didn't draw them off sides, call a timeout. They end up getting the ball back with 15 seconds left instead of a minute. It's just horrible coaching decision. See, I had a lot with these guys. It seems like in the moment they make just blunders when it comes to clock management. I always said some of these guys should have like someone just dedicated to do nothing but just do clock management stuff. And someone needed to be in his ear saying, you cannot waste your time out trying to draw them off sides. Just run a play.
Yeah, you got to wonder if there is, though. I'm sure some of these guys got quality control coaches, but at the same time, I can't imagine the egos on some of these head coaches in the NFL. I mean, you've got to be somebody that's confident in yourself to be an NFL head coach. You've climbed through the ranks. I mean, you want to talk about a profession where you have to bust your butt and you are not handed anything. You don't get a head coaching job in the NFL, through nepotism. Nobody's going to say, well, this is my friend's son, and we're going to let him or her or whoever be the head coach of this franchise without somebody doing some work. So I'm sure that their mentality is, hey, I know what I'm doing. I don't need help. And then from there, they just make the call. So I can imagine if he doesn't have someone in his ear, he should, but maybe he wasn't listening to him. That's a tough break there.
Yeah, of course, huge loss for Houston or Indianapolis. They would have been in the playoffs, and still a good, solid year for them. I mean, 9-8 after losing their quarterback early in the year. Minshew kind of is what he is. He's a good backup, low-end starter for them to win 9 games, but they're going to be super disappointed because they had it. They had that game. Houston, man, got to be happy for C.J. Stroud. The dude's just a good kid, too, on top of being a good player, of course, from Ohio State. Makes you root for him a little more for myself, but he's just a good dude, too. I mean, he's real humble, soft-spoken. Really, really happy to see him doing good this year.
Yeah. If you were saying his opinion, I wouldn't want to face the Texans in the playoffs. I wouldn't either because they are explosive. Tank Dell's out for the season, and that does hurt them, but you saw it last night. CJ Stroud is not afraid to pull the trigger. They're not afraid to call plays for him. They have some really cool motion in their offense pre-snap. They do some really new kind of things there. You love seeing coach staffs like that are ready to take chances and to try new things. DeMeco Ryans was the 49ers defensive coordinator. And when he was hired for this job, me as a 49ers fan, I'm thinking, I don't know if he's ready yet and how, open is he going to be to things? Because, Robert Saleh, he was in the same position. We lost our last couple of defensive coordinators to head coaching spots, and his offenses are awful. But Ryans is a completely different animal. He's doing an amazing job down there. And Houston loves him because he played there for forever. That's just a good, cool story to watch. And one that I think that you're going to have to watch out for Houston now for the next however many years. As long as this CJ Stroud year is a leap point for his career and not one where he does, sometimes you'll see rookies come in and play well and then they never get any better. Mac Jones is one of them. RG3, we've seen the same thing happen. As long as that doesn't happen, these guys are going to be a team to watch out for. So we're going to go ahead into our system plays now. Once again, 1-800-GAMBLER is there. Resources for you. If you feel like you do have a gambling problem, please feel free to call. The call is free. Our first one, we're going to head to the AFC South, where the Jacksonville Jaguars, they come off a shutout win over Carolina without Trevor Lawrence, and they win the division. They are heading to Tennessee to take on the Titans. They're a 4.5-point favorite. Tennessee always plays tough, no matter what kind of a roster they have or guys they have available. the system likes Tennessee getting 4.5 here. And Jim, before I even gave you the system picks, you said you like Tennessee in this spot.
Yeah, just looking at the matchups early in the week, kind of jumped out at me. Earlier in the week, it was a little bit higher. It was around 5.5. So some money has come in on Tennessee to bump it down a bit. Tennessee always plays tough at home. You know, they're never an easy out. I was looking. I mean, they've lost some games at home this year, but they're always close, tough, hard-fought losses. Division games are usually even more close and hard fought than others. Jacksonville looked good last week, but it was against Carolina. Before that, they had lost four straight and looking like they were on the ropes. Lawrence trending towards playing. Trevor Lawrence, quarterback for Jacksonville, but probably not going to be 100%. So I don't know if that's going to be a factor. You got Tannehill coming in for Tennessee. He's going to be starting today, the old veteran. So I think getting 4.5 points at home, bit too much. I wouldn't be surprised at all here to see Tennessee win outright. A lot of pressure is going to be on Jacksonville. You mentioned if they win, they're division champs. If they lose, they're out. So this is just a straight up playoff game for them. Could be some pressure with them facing this kind of situation. So system pick 4.5 Tennessee, and personally, I like that play as well.
Yeah, I mean Tennessee, they're well coached. We talk about this, I think, almost every week. Vrabel, one of the best motivators of the game. Their offensive line is terrible, and they've ignored that for a while now. I think they got in some cap trouble as well, but it's Tannehill with an offensive line and a guy to throw to. His ceiling is really high, but he's not a guy that can play in chaos too well. So it'll be interesting to see. Levis has done pretty well for a rookie, considering the situation there. Tennessee, a little bit of underachievers, if you ask me, this year. They lost some close games. But, again, if you don't have an offensive line in this league with the pass rush that there is now, you don't have much of a chance. But we're going to roll with the numbers. The system does like the Titans getting 4.5, hosting the Jags. So that's our first pick. Second pick, we're going to stay down south. We're going to switch to the NFC. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3.5-point favorites at the Carolina Panthers. In the matchup earlier in the season, the Buccaneers won, but it was only by 3 points. And we've seen Carolina beat division foes. They beat that Falcons team, who basically that game cost them a chance at the playoffs with that loss. I don't like this pick. I don't trust the Buccaneers. They got whooped on last week by the Saints, and they're away again here. But the system likes them -3.5 versus this Carolina team that's looked awful all year.
Yeah, Tampa Bay's pretty much in the same situation as Jacksonville. If they win, they're division champs. They got a home game. They lose, they're out. So playoff game right here for Tampa. It was super disappointing last week for Tampa Bay showing at home. They could have wrapped up the division last week against the Saints. And, I mean, they're down 20 points pretty quickly. Just really didn't come to play. Worked out for us. We had the Saints. So kind of watching that game. And offensively, Tampa Bay could do nothing for the first 2-3 quarters. I mean, at one point, deep into the game, they had like 40 yards of offense. I mean, they just looked awful. We say it a lot. Sometimes when the team has a real bad performance like that, it doesn't really shock you when they come back the next week, bounce back with a good performance. Helpful that they're playing Carolina. I mean, Carolina looked awful again last week against Jacksonville, getting totally blown out. So at least they got a good matchup. Huge game. I mean, they need to win the division. Other teams are hoping Tampa Bay loses. So never like to lay 3.5 points on the road in a division game, but system likes it. So rolling with Tampa Bay today.
Yeah, Mayfield's had a pretty good year overall. They do have weapons there. Carolina, only thing they have to play for is to be a spoiler. And they don't even get their first-round pick this season, so they have no incentive to lose right now whatsoever. So that'll be you got a very average team and then a bad team. That will be an interesting game to see if Tampa can pull things out and win that division. Next, we're going to stay south, but we're going to head west a little bit here. We are the Dallas Cowboys are at Washington, I should say. They are 13.5-point favorites, and the system actually likes Washington getting 13.5 playing Dallas. This has got to be Riverboat Ron's last hurrah, his final game. I'm sure he's not going to be back. Ron Rivera, their head coach for Washington, he's got to be out after this. I don't see how in the world they could keep him. They did kind of play spoiler last year. They beat Dallas by 3 touchdowns at home in the finale last year, if memory serves me correct. This is a division game. Dallas doesn't play the same on the road. Yes, it's desperation time for them, but we saw last week that that Dallas team. I mean, their head coach Mike McCarthy, man, he does some boneheaded things sometimes. I know it's easy for us to sit here and say that, but he nearly handed Detroit that game last week, and I don't trust the guy very much. So given almost 2 touchdowns, I'm going to roll with the system here and take Washington plus 13.
Yeah, got 13 and a half in
13
some
and a half,
books.
sorry.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a ton of points to lay on the road, of course, in a rivalry game. Have to hope Washington's just up for the game. I did see reports came out today that Rivera is expected to be fired on Monday. Hopefully they can rally the troops, maybe get one last hurrah, one last all-out effort to play hard for the outgoing coach. Sure, they'll want to hurt Dallas. This is a big game for Dallas. They need to win the division. If they lose and Philadelphia wins, that would drop them to a wild card spot, which is big for them considering their home field advantage is great. So, yeah, we just have to hope that Washington comes out to play hard. I mean, they put up a fight somewhat against San Francisco, at least for a while last week. So as long as they come out and play hard, that's a ton of points to be laying on the road in the NFL.
Yeah, it is. And, last year we saw in the final week of the season, Lovie Smith, Houston Texans head coach. I'm sure front office wanted to lose that game. They wanted the number 1 overall pick. And Lovie Smith come out. I think it was the end of the game. He took a couple big gambles. They ended up pulling it out, winning, getting the second pick. Lo and behold, though, they get C.J. Stroud, and things have worked out for them. So they ought to be sending him a case of champagne or a thank you card for that win last year because they ended up getting the right guy, obviously. So Rivera, if he's done this, and he's not going to be a head coach ever again. I mean, he wasn't well in the past. I think he overcame cancer. He's getting up there in age. This is it for him. He's going to pull out all the stops. I don't see why he wouldn't. So we're going to roll with the system. Washington getting 13 and a half at home versus the Dallas Cowboys. Next game here, we are sticking with the NFC, and we have the Chicago Bears getting 3 points at the Green Bay Packers. I don't know about you, but Chicago has looked well, but this Packers team is one that's tough to figure out. One week they look great, like they're a playoff team and they belong. And the next week they just can't figure out who they are. Jordan Love, he'll have half of his throws in a game like, wow, that guy's got something. And the other half, like, what are you doing? I can't figure out this Packers team.
Yeah, good call. They are so up and down. Sometimes they look like Love looks like a franchise quarterback. He'll make some wild plays for sure. And then other times they just can't find a rhythm. I do feel that them losing Christian Watson a few weeks back was huge. They kind of built their passing game around him. He's an underrated receiver. He's super athletic. He's like questionable 50-50. It's looking this week to come back. He hasn't played the last few. So if they could get him back, I think that would be big. Chicago, we've been on them a lot the last half of the season. I mean, they're playing really well right now. They've won 4 out of 5. The only loss was at Cleveland, which is down to the end game. So Chicago, I was looking at some of the stats. I mean, their run defense is really good. We've talked about it before a couple of times. They're statistically the number 1 run defense in the league, least amount of yards given up, which is good for them. I mean, they're usually losing a lot, so you'd think their run defense stats wouldn't be that good. I mean, they've been excellent against the run. Green Bay likes to try to run the ball, so Chicago love to play spoiler here. I mean, Green Bay is a huge game for them, of course. So their playoff scenario is win, and they're in as a wild card. If they lose, they would still get in if they got some help from a couple other teams. So Chicago going on the road here, they'd want to play spoiler against their arch rival.
Yeah, for sure. And, Justin Fields has been playing good football, and mainly because of his connection with DJ Moore. That's the guy that you have to cover. If not, Fields is going to find him. Listening to some of the podcasts that we listen to, I know that there's some chatter around in the NFL betting circles that if you take DJ Moore out of the game, then you could take out that passing game in Chicago. So, I mean, if Green Bay can do that, they might be able to, play a great game and win. But I still can't stop thinking about that Tampa game. Buccaneers went up there and just handed their butts to them and just ran away with that game early. I just can't trust this Green Bay game. I'm rolling with the system at +3, and this Chicago team that's going to keep their head coach. It looks like Matt Eberflus has bought himself another year. I don't know if I would personally make that decision because while he's done a decent job this year at getting better and improving Fields, I don't know. I feel like it's taken a little bit too long. And is he going to really take the next step next year with this same staff? I don't know how you feel, but I'm not too confident on them for next year.
Yeah, you had hoped you had seen more from Fields consistently now. We've talked to guys who's super talented, really starting to put it together. But, yeah, you're right. It did take a while. Up until 5 weeks ago, you would have said Eberflus is almost surely gone. This last little run they've had has probably saved his job. So we'll see. We've said they've got an interesting offseason. I mean, with the way Fields is playing now, I just can't see them giving up on him. There's been a lot of talk of them moving on and using one of their top picks. We mentioned Carolina. They had traded their pick to Chicago. So Chicago has the number 1 pick in the draft this year. Their pick also is going to be pretty good. So they got some great picks to build around Fields. They're going to be an up-and-coming team. You're right. The coach is probably the big question mark. But you got to think with Fields, if they can give him another weapon, opposite more, a little more help on the O-line, their defense is already pretty good. They could be an up-and-coming team in the next few years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're sitting pretty. Eberflus is, if he's going to do it, he's going to do it now. He's got to do it now because they do have a pretty good defense. They got some guys at the trade deadline. They have the best cornerback in the NFL, and Fields is showing something. So I would definitely be watching this game, and I will be looking to see how they do next year. So that's the 4th pick for the system. The last pick here, we are heading down way south. Miami Dolphins are getting 3 points at home versus the Buffalo Bills. The system likes Miami getting 3 at home here. I don't like this pick at all. We were talking before we went live. There are some injuries, and Buffalo is one of those teams where they can look like they'll beat anybody by 3 touchdowns one week, and then the next week they barely beat the New England Patriots in the worst offense in the NFL. So you went over and saw – you looked over some things and you saw that Miami's got some key guys out.
They sure do. I mean, without Waddle again, he was out last week. Mostert as well. Mostert isn't a huge loss. I mean, he's good, but their backup, not even a backup, their co-running back, Achane, is really good. But particularly they lost last week. Chubb, the pass rusher, went down for the season. And Xavier Howard, really good cornerback, he went out last week. He's certainly going to be out again. So we did talk about this before the broadcast here, and it seems like everything's pointing towards Buffalo, right? Buffalo playing well the last few weeks. Miami got shellacked at Baltimore. Only laying, there's some books even have it at 2.5 for Buffalo. Classic case where I guarantee the majority of the betting public is on Buffalo here. It's just all pointing that way. Classic spot where the system says, hey, hold on. If you strip away kind of the public opinion of what's going on and take the whole season, Miami shouldn't be getting 3 points at home here, even with those injuries. So, you say, I hate this pick. I swear if we would go back a few years and every time you said, I hate this system pick, I bet it's over 500. That's usually how it works in sports betting. The ones where it seems like, oh, this is an obvious play, not so fast. It's usually the underlying numbers don't usually kind of compute to what public opinion is. So I feel the same way, really looking at this with the injuries, like, I don't really feel good about betting Miami at home, getting 3, but I certainly understand why the system would say this is a play for us.
Yeah, I mean, they've got playmakers. They still got Tyreek. They've got a pretty good defense. Chubb, that's a huge loss for them. Buffalo, Josh Allen could make a case to be MVP this year. The guy's got like 45 total touchdowns. He's got 15 or 16 rushing touchdowns. That's crazy for a quarterback. That's unheard of. It's been the quietest 45 touchdown year ever for a quarterback, if you ask me. Like, how in the world is nobody talking about this guy? Well, it's because they keep losing these games in these stupid fashion. Little things have not went their way. Bounces have not went their way. We talked earlier in the season how Josh Allen and C.J. Stroud had the same turnover-worthy play percentage, but Allen led the league in turnovers and Stroud had the least amount in the league. And that is the most telling stat of all, that things are just not bouncing your way when passes that should not be intercepted and, fumbles should not be recovered by the other team keep continually happening. You're just having some bad luck. So that's why he probably hasn't had the amount of attention that he should have. But Miami still is a juggernaut on offense when they want to be. Buffalo still can have brain farts like they did last week against New England, where they barely won. They gave up a kick return touchdown to open the game, so they got some holes. I'm excited for this game.
Yeah, it's a fun game for sure. That's why they moved it to the Sunday night game. Buffalo could be in a win or out situation, depending on what Jacksonville does. If Jacksonville wins, it's do or die for Buffalo to even make the playoffs. So I'm sure a lot of AFC teams are probably rooting for Miami to just go ahead and knock Buffalo out, because they certainly have the talent to make a run in the AFC playoffs. I think Allen not getting much buzz. It's really because the last few years he's already established where he was kind of the up and coming guy, and there was a lot of buzz around him. Now it's just ho hum. He's just great. He's just is what he is. Huge game. Miami getting 3 at home. Man, it's a fun one for sure tonight.
Absolutely. So that is the 5 system picks we have this week. The Titans getting 4.5 at home versus Jacksonville. Tampa Bay -3.5 at Carolina. Washington getting 13.5 versus Dallas. The Bears getting 3 at Green Bay, and Miami getting 3 at home versus Buffalo. All right, so there are other games happening, and a lot of these other games we counted up. I think there were only 4 of them that actually have any kind of bearing here. So we're going to start off. Let's start off with one that has no bearing, but I'm sure people are still interested in. The Browns are at Cincinnati to take on the Bengals to finish up the season. Cleveland's sitting a bunch of guys. The Bengals are 7.5-point favorites. Is anybody worth note playing for Cleveland today?
It's hard to say. They certainly are sitting some guys for sure. Flacco, of course. Amari Cooper sitting. Myles Garrett, Newsome, the cornerback. They're definitely sitting a good bit of guys. Even the guys that are playing, it's hard to know for sure how much they're going to play or play at all. Same with Baltimore yesterday. Going into the game, you knew some of the top guys were out, but like the rest of the guys, are they going to play? And Baltimore did end up playing most of their starters. So it's really hard to tell with some of these games, like how far are they really going to go with sitting guys and playing backup. So Cleveland rolling with Jeff Driscoll at quarterback today. So, I mean, how many quarterbacks have they started this year? It's got to be 4 or 5.
I think that's the 5th one.
Yeah. I really thought about playing Cincinnati in this one as one of our teaser legs, bringing it down to just 1.5. But I just don't know. I just don't know how much Cleveland is really going to put forth an effort. Cincinnati, too, coming off a big loss at KC last week, knocked them out of the playoff race. I'm sure they want to beat their rival, but Cleveland, nothing to play for. One of those games where there's a lot of unknowns coming into it. It's kind of tough one to bet.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And to giving up that many points, I wouldn't touch this game. I don't know why anybody really would. Cincinnati, they're going to be playing for a winning record. I mean, you as a coach, you always want to go out with a winning record. I'm sure you're at home, but they've had, they lost their franchise quarterback this season. They really have overachieved with the backup. I don't know how you could be too upset as a Bengals fan. Browns, they don't have anything to play for. Flacco's not young. They need to get him the rest that he needs. But, I wish I could see a list of every NFL team and the incentives players have to get bonuses, because that would be some prop bets we could make. We talked yesterday, Jadeveon Clowney, he needed a half of a sack yesterday to get a $750,000 bonus. Lo and behold, he got it. And he was celebrating. He was dancing after that. It looked like it was an incomplete pass, and then they called it a fumble. So, when you hit a quarterback and he fumbles, it automatically counts as a sack. And he's dancing, and the announcers are like, well, there's a reason, because he just made almost $1 million with that hit. I had seen earlier in the day, Chris Jones needs a half of a sack today to get a $1.25 million bonus. Anybody out there watching who can find a player prop for Chris Jones and sacks, I'm betting over a half a sack if you can get that, if you can find that today. Games like this, that's the only thing I would probably bet on, where there's really nothing for either team to play for. I don't know of any with either of these teams. Otherwise, I'm staying away.
Yeah, I'd imagine if you looked hard enough, you could probably find Chris Jones sack prop somewhere. and the books probably heard that get out and probably shaded the odds a little bit, knowing
Right.
people will want to bet it. But that is funny. That Clowney situation was great. I mean, these guys make a lot of money. Clowney's made a ton of money in his career for sure, but still, 750 grand is 750 grand. So, I mean, these guys are going to go for it. I saw Kelsey. I don't think it was a financial incentive, I don't believe, but he had some sort of milestone that he was going to go for today in the Chiefs game. And the word was Reed was going to let him go out there just to hit this milestone. So, yeah, some of these, otherwise meaningless games, hard to know for sure who's going to go for what and who's going to play, who's going to sit the whole game.
Yeah. Me personally, I always imagine the wives at home with a bottle of wine waiting for that sack or that catch or that touchdown and just tipping it, handed it out, and cheers, after something like that. I certainly would if it was me. Okay, so there are a couple games that do mean something today. Let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles. They are -4.5 at the New York Giants. They want to win and they want Dallas to lose to be able to take over that NFC East title and get the number 2 seed or a chance at it anyway. No play here from the system on this game because it was too close to call. But I know you did some research on this game yourself.
Yeah, it was Tyrod Taylor playing for the Giants, so the system just can't play it. We said we have to have 4 starts for the quarterback to be able to qualify for a system play. So old Tyrod going again for the Giants. They played well last week, almost upset the Rams. I mean, they really should have won it. They had plenty of chances there at the end. Tyrod had over 300 yards passing. Like, it's crazy. That guy's still around and still putting up decent numbers as a solid backup. You think he certainly raises the floor over DeVito, who was kind of the flavor of the month. Played pretty well, but Taylor, of course, gives them a better floor, better safe quarterback play. So, before that, too, the week before, they went to Philly and gave them a pretty good battle as well. So they just played each other 2 weeks ago. Philly, man, they just falling apart. They lost at home to Arizona in a big game for them. They needed to win out to win the division. Just totally blew the game at home against Arizona. They've lost 4 out of 5 now. I mean, Philly needs to win today, have Dallas lost, which doesn't look too likely, but you'd think they want to try to get back on track, get on the win column going into the playoffs here.
Yeah, for sure. And, that Cardinals team made us money last week. That was one of the games I hated. I said, I hate this bet. The Arizona was getting 12.5. And they even gave up a defensive touchdown on a pick 6, and they still came and won outright. And we talked about the storyline there with our head coach coming from Philly. Those things matter. Those are the kind of things you really have to look out for. Philly not playing their best. Giants would love to play, at least a little bit of a spoiler as the Eagles are still in the playoffs. But, this will be fun to watch. Tyrod playing well this season. The Giants have not looked bad at all with him. I don't think they've gotten blown out in any of his starts. And they've been really close with some good teams. So definitely one to keep an eye on there. Another one here we've got that does have a little bit of meaning. Obviously, for the Saints, it has meaning. The Atlanta Falcons are getting 3 points headed to New Orleans to play the Saints. Saints got that big win over Tampa last week. Saints win and the Bucs lose. Saints win the division. We don't know who's starting for Atlanta right now, so that's why we don't have a pick coming here. We think we know who it's going to be, but as of right now, they haven't announced a starting quarterback. If I'm betting this game, I'm probably going with the Saints.
Yeah, looking like Heineke was questionable. Game time decision. I've been trying to keep an eye out for the updates. Nothing's come through yet. Otherwise, they're rolling with Ritter. Big game for the Saints. They can still get in. They need to win. They need, Tampa Bay to lose, and they would win the division. Atlanta's still in it as well, actually. If Atlanta wins and Tampa Bay loses, Atlanta would win the division and host a playoff game, which sounds crazy, but that's the case. I saw Kamara was highly questionable, but news this morning looks like they're hopeful he would play. Of course, he's a huge part of their offense. That would be massive if he didn't play. So no play for us this week. The quarterback situation a little bit too iffy for us to really roll with either of these teams. So big game in the NFC South, though.
Yeah, and you know what? I guess I didn't realize the Falcons still had a chance. They haven't really played that bad. They're just missing a quarterback. I mean, that team's got pretty much everything else. They got a good offensive line. Their defense is really good. Their defense, I saw a stat yesterday. They were number 2 in the NFL and a really interesting defensive stat. I think it was percentage of drives ending in a touchdown. They were the second best defense in the NFL. That's a great stat. I mean, if you're only giving up only 20-something percent of drives are ending up in touchdowns, you're giving your offense a chance. The problem is they just can't score a lot of points. They've relied on Koo, their kicker. He's had a great season, but they've lost some close games because, if they could put up another touchdown a game, if they could or turned a field goal into a touchdown, they would be resting guys today.
Yeah, it's the case for a lot of these teams, man. There's a fine margin between being on the outside looking in and resting guys this week. These games week to week are just so close. I mean, it doesn't take much to, be 6-9 right now versus 9-6. It's just very slim margins in the NFL. It really is. I was just looking through my news updates here to see any updates, and it does look like Kamara has been rolled out. He's not going to play, So that's a big loss for the Saints there. Still, the Saints, man, I just can't get a finger on them, really. Like, it seems like every time we try to bet them, we're on the wrong side. Right. In the last few years, it's kind of been that way. It's like, man, they're just so up and down. They seem like they should be better than they are, but sometimes you feel good about them. They look good. They're rolling. You back them, and they just completely blow it. And hard team to trust, hard team to go against. Seems like we're just always on the wrong side of them. So I'm with you today of just staying far away from this game.
Yeah, they have a quarterback who keeps games clean, but he hasn't done as well in New Orleans as he did in Vegas doing that for some reason. So their margin of error, and they've had just stupid things happen. Balance is not going their way. They should be better than they are. So should the Falcons. We'll see who shows up today. I would imagine they're in that arena down there. They get loud. That's going to be a tough environment for Atlanta. We'll see how Heineke can do in that situation. Let's head to Detroit. We talked about last week with that controversy that happened there in Detroit. I don't know. Actually, there was controversy that happened with the Detroit and Dallas game last week. It's been talked to death. I'm not going to bring it up here. But they still got a chance at the number 2 seed. Minnesota's coming there a 4-point favorite against Minnesota. Vikings have went with just about as many quarterbacks this year as Cleveland has, and they just can't they got traded for Josh Dobbs, and then they've had a couple of other guys come in since then. I don't know. I wouldn't touch this game. I guess if I had to bet, I would go with Detroit. They're probably pretty upset about last week.
Yeah, I'm not even sure who the Vikings are rolling with this week. Are they going
I don't have any idea.
I saw the inactives. The guy they started last week, Hall, he's inactive. So I'd imagine they're going back to Mullins. I don't know. I didn't really look into this one too much because it's not known how hard Detroit's going to play for the win. They've already wrapped up the division title, so they got a chance to move up one spot, but that would require Washington as 13.5 dogs to upset Dallas. So hard to know for sure again in these how much they're going to play for. I saw Campbell did come out and say that they're going to go for the win. I don't think they're going to sit anybody right from the get-go like Goff is playing. So they're at least going to start, but how much are they really going to go for it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and after a loss like that, I mean, I'm sure you kind of just want to move on. So you want to let's forget about it. Let's go out here. Let's play well. Let's get this win under our belt. Get ready for the playoffs. Minnesota, the only thing they have to play for is a spoiler role right now. This is a division game. And you see this every year. NFL intentionally schedules division games for the last week. And you'll see a favorite who needs a win. Everybody's on them, public's on them. And this underdog comes in. They get the win. And they come out, play spoiler, and teams don't make the playoffs. This happens all the time. So I'm not touching the game either way. Yeah, but I guess I would go with Detroit, but I wouldn't feel good about it if I did.
You'd think if Detroit's going all out, this line would be a little bit higher. But Minnesota actually does have like a 1% chance at the playoffs. They need like 3 or 4 different things to go their way. I mean, they're almost surely out, but they do have a Hail Mary in there to make the playoffs.
Good luck to them. All right, last game here of the non-system plays that has any kind of meaning. Seattle's -3 at Arizona. Almost was a system play. We didn't have enough confidence points to take this one. It almost liked Arizona getting 3 points at home versus Seattle. Seattle got beat by Pittsburgh last week. Seattle's a well-coached team with a little bit of talent here and there, but they're not great. up front on the offensive side of the ball, and they do have some holes on defense. Arizona's offense has been moving since Kyler's been back. This is in Arizona, and they're getting points. Seattle needs a win, and I believe I think they're in the last spot right now, but they still need the win to get into the playoffs, and they'll probably need a couple of other things to happen. I didn't check that out. But Arizona, man, they looked good against Philly last week.
Yeah, Arizona's playing tough ball. They haven't rolled over all year, really. They're not the most talented team, but they've been playing hard for the new coach. I certainly wouldn't take this for granted, Seattle, with the division game. The playoff scenario for them is they do need to win and a Green Bay loss. So certainly feasible. I mean, Green Bay only 3-point favorites, so they're playing for their playoff lives today. That Seattle-Pittsburgh game was kind of eye-opening for me last week, the way Pittsburgh's offensive line just bullied Seattle's run defense severely. I mean, they were just gashing them in the run game all game long. I was looking at the stats. Seattle's run defense is pretty far down the list metrically and just in statistics as far as their run defense goes. Could certainly see Arizona just running Connor a lot today and just running the ball. Much more dangerous Arizona with Kyler these last few weeks. I really wanted to sneak this one in. I actually do like Arizona getting 3 points here at home. I don't think Seattle's really shown enough to be laying 3 points on the road like this to not a good team, but someone that's feisty. They shouldn't be laying points on the road here. So wasn't able to squeeze it in for my best bet or my teaser this week. I like a few other games a bit more, but I will be betting Arizona today. I do like them getting 3 points at home.
Yeah, not a bad bet. I was hoping that we could bet this one because I liked Arizona there too. And, you said Pittsburgh really just bullied them up front, had a good running attack. James Conner is a really great running back there in Arizona. They can do the same with him. Kyler, he's a good runner. If your run defense is struggling, then this could be a game that, Seattle's going to be playing for their lives with. So that's the last one we're going to go over before we head to Bailey's bets in his teaser pick. One last time, 1-800-GAMBLER. Please call 1-800-GAMBLER if you feel like you have a gambling problem or you need help. It is there for you to provide resources. So as you mentioned earlier, when we first started with 13-11 with our game picks, system picks, 3-2 in best bets, 3-2 in teaser picks, both hit last week, both cashed last week. So we're trying to keep this going. We don't want to go back to 500 here. Why don't we start with your best bet, Bailey? What is Bailey's best bet for week 18?
Yeah, last week was a snoozer. Had Baltimore laying 3, and that was pretty much over early on. Cruise to an easy win, so maybe we'll get lucky with that again. I do like a few games this week. It was kind of tough to narrow it down to which one I like the best, but we're going to go with the Bears, getting 3 points against Green Bay. We covered the game earlier, but I think them getting 3 points is good value. Their defense is good. Their run defense, maybe the best in the NFL. Not going to let Green Bay just push them all over the field. They're going to be there to play. They know Green Bay's spot where they need to win to get in. So Chicago's going to play spoiler. We've been on Chicago a lot the last half of the year. They've been good to us. Been cashing a lot with them. So rolling with them again. We're going to go with the Chicago Bears +3 against the Green Bay Packers.
All right, that's Bailey's best bet. And we'll wrap things up here with your teaser pick for the week. That hit last week too. Remember, folks, a teaser means that whatever 2 teams you pick, you can add 6 points to them, but you have to bet them together to get the bet to play here. So it's a 6-point teaser. Who you got this week, Bailey?
Yep, last week we had Kansas City, who won somewhat comfortably against Cincinnati. It was looking a little hairy for a while. And then we had the Bears, who just blew away Atlanta last week. So this week, we're going to a couple games that we covered already. One of them is Tennessee, who the system likes as well. So there are some 4.5 lines out there. So we're going to add 6 points to them to get Tennessee up to 10.5. I like Tennessee today. Wouldn't surprise me at all to win this game outright. Getting 10.5 at home feels pretty safe. So we're going to roll with them. Other leg, we're going to go with the Giants. Also another home dog division game. They're getting 5 at some books, so we can move them up to 11. I don't think Philly should be laying this many points on the road with the way they've looked lately. Giants have been playing solid. They're going to be playing hard today. With the way Philly's playing, I mean, getting 11 at home, we'll take that all the time. So we're going to roll with the Giants +11 and Tennessee +10.5.
All right. Well, that will do it for the regular season version here of Cherry Pickers. We're definitely coming back next week for the playoffs. We'll be back next Sunday at 11. There will be Saturday games. We're going to try to come and at least have a short show for there's Saturday games. We should be able to come back, at least do a short show. If you're available, Bailey, we can do that to give some picks on the Saturday games as well. And college football will be over. So we're heading into the thick of things here. Next month's the Super Bowl, and then it's sad mode for us NFL junkies because football's over. But we do plan on coming back with the UFL, with gambling being, legal now in Ohio and then the surrounding Pennsylvania, West Virginia as well. I think that these leagues are going to continue to do well and probably survive XFL, USFL combined. I would love to try to get the system rolling with those leagues, and that's what I'm going to try to do this spring. But that'll do it for the regular season here. We'll be back next week. For Jim Bailey, I'm Gary Altizer, and for DJ Yoakley and Brian Scott back at home base, thanks for tuning in to YSN. We'll see you next time.
YSN thanks you for watching this presentation of Your Sports Network. For stories, stats, and more, go to ysnlive.com.